So, one of the first orders of business, I think, for this live stream is to talk about the impending flurry, blizzard, really, of anti-trans legislation that has been introduced in not in the national legislature, but in other legislatures. There are apparently a handful of states so far this year that have proposed anti-trans bills in their legislatures that would, in most cases, ban transitioning for people under a certain age. Very straightforward Nazi shit. But then also, in the case of, I believe it was Oklahoma, it would force anybody under the age of 26, I believe was the threshold for their law, to detransition, to not only stop, not only not receive the care, but, like, reverse it. Which is fucked up. And, it's an example of the thing I've been saying that a lot of people have been saying who have been criticized for being, I don't know, too dramatic, too uncharitable towards Republicans, which I would counter with there is no degree of charitability. There is no degree of uncharitability that is not warranted for Republicans in America. Yeah, this is just right. I remember. This is just trans genocide. This is just an attempt by state legislatures to erase trans people pretty transparently too. It's very clear that there's only one possible end objective in all of these legislative battles, and that is to construct a world where it is impossible for trans people to exist, be that either through the means of preventing trans individuals from going through with transition, or via reversing that transition where it does happen in any limited capacity. So, ontologically evil meme, but in the case of Republicans, their ideology is necessarily, like, it is ontologically bad. Like, if there is, as I remember it from philosophy, the ontological proof of, I think it was God. It was a like medieval philosopher that put forward the ontological proof of God's existence. Was that, like, a theoretical perfect being must exist because existing is more perfect than not existing, or something like that, which means, like, by definition it exists, by definition it is what it is. Republicans are ideologically are ontologically evil. If you are a Republican legislator, this is not to say any card-carrying member of the Republican Party, because I have very different opinions on that. I would have to get into, like, manufacturing consent and all that. But Republicans, as a product of their platform, are ontologically evil. You cannot have. Let me put it this way. You cannot have a Republican in the United States, Republican lawmaker or official, that fits the definition of a Republican and is not evil. So I wanted to, actually, while I have a moment, let me read just straight from the article. Oklahoma bill would ban gender-affirming care for people under 26, could force some to detransition. As politicians in red states across the country pass one anti-trans bill after the next, they frequently claim that they're doing so for the children. In Arkansas, Tennessee, Arizona, Alabama, and Florida, for example, where various bans on gender-affirming care for minors have been passed, lawmakers have insisted that people under the age of 18 are simply too young to make decisions about their own bodies, arguing that laws and rules preventing them from doing so are in their own best interest. By the way, this is also bald-facedly not true, because the medical age for consent is I think 15 in a few areas, where if you are consulting with a doctor, you do not need the approval of your parents if you are 15 years old or older to make a medical decision about yourself. So, like, if your parents do not want you to be trans, if your parents are like vehemently against it, but you're 15 years old, legally there is nothing they can do to stop you. They can, like, since they have a certain level of dominion over you, they could be like, well, we're not going to give you the money for this, whatever. But if you go to a doctor and you decide, I want to go with this through with this transition, the word of your parents means nothing to the doctor. So that already is false. Let's see. Such arguments allow elected officials to suggest that they are not anti-trans, that they believe trans as adults should be free to live however they like, and that, again, this is about looking out for kids who don't yet have the maturity to make major life decisions. Again, medical age of consent, this is not actually about that. This is a lie. Unfortunately, that argument is extremely difficult to believe for a multitude of reasons. Oh, well, there you go. Including the fact that a number of states are trying to restrict gender-affirming care for adults. For instance, Oklahoma, which took a fresh stab at it last night. This was written on January 5th, so on the 4th is when this happened. Yeah, late Wednesday, Oklahoma State Senator David Bullard filed a bill whose passage would prevent anyone under the age of 26, a full 8 years beyond the widely accepted threshold for adulthood, from accessing gender-affirming medical care. Oklahoma SB 129, also known as the Millstone Act of 2023, would make it a felony for healthcare providers to administer or even just recommend such care. It also dangles the threat of medical license revocation over unprofessional conduct. So basically, this law says, we hate trans people so much that we're going to make it illegal for doctors to do or talk about, in consultation with the patients, gender-affirming care. Surgery, consultation, HRT, whatever it is, it's banned for people under the age of 26. And of course, they're not going to abide by that either. They're going to keep raising the age limit until it is illegal to be trans. This is just the next step in that. In addition to surgery, the list of prohibited treatments includes puberty blockers and hormones. This has a contradiction woven in it where cis people also receive gender-affirming care, or rather hormone blockers as treatments for, what's the term, precocious puberty. That's a condition that some people go through where they hit puberty too early, so they'll have to go on puberty blockers for a time to sort of bring their development back into line with what we can expect from people of that age. This is perfectly normal. It's been in use since the 1980s. Puberty blockers have been proven to be safe. So this is just about them hating the transes. And theoretically, this bill would outlaw that kind of treatment as well, but they don't care about that. So the bill also blocks public funds from being used, quote, directly or indirectly for gender-affirming care, and bars Medicaid from covering gender transition procedures, institutionally shutting out any avenue for doing so. And note, this does not specify people under 26. This is just any gender-affirming care will not receive public money. They're threatening to withhold that money from hospitals and such. As activist Aaron Reed notes, the way the bill is written suggests that people under the age of 26 who are currently receiving gender-affirming care would no longer be able to do so, and thus would potentially be forced to medically detransition. A separate Oklahoma bill filed in December of last year would ban healthcare professionals from providing, quote, gender transition procedures to anyone under 21, with a penalty of up to 10 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. It's unsurprising that Bullard was also the author of an Oklahoma law prohibiting transgender children from using school bathrooms and locker rooms that align with their gender identity, a law that's currently being challenged by the ACLU. So David Bullard is an exemplary representative of the rest of the Republican Party. They just want trans children to be raped and abused. That is the only potential outcome that can happen as a result of forcing a trans girl into the boys' locker room, or to a lesser degree of forcing a trans boy into the girls' locker room. That one's a little bit different because of the existing gender dynamics in a patriarchal world, but still a problem. Canned soy milk, thank you for the follow. As The Hill reported last month, no fewer than 20 bills targeting transgender medical care have been pre-filed in at least 9 states to be taken up this year. So there's going to be more laws like this in the future about transgender persons, transgender kids, even transgender adults. You know, the mask is dropping ever lower, and it makes it all the more frustrating when I hear anybody say that, you know, the Republican Party isn't full of genocidal maniacs. Actually, I think they're quite reasonable. Oh, okay. They just care about individual freedom. You know, we care about individual freedom so much that we will outlaw gender transition for people who are of the age of medical and legal majority. That's how much we care. Literally demons. Yeah, I actually went over this earlier. I took a philosophy class. You know, people make jokes about the Republicans being ontologically evil, but they fit the definition of something that is ontologically evil. So the ontological proof of God, what I believe it was Anselm put forward in I believe the 13th century, it was a long time ago, stated that God must exist because the definition of God is an all-perfect being, and the state of existing is more perfect than the state of not existing. Therefore, God exists because it's all perfect. That is a form of perfection. So basically, the way we define God makes it such that God has to exist, makes it so that God does exist. You cannot have a Republican lawmaker, politician especially, that fits the definition of a Republican and have them not be evil. By definition, ontologically, they are evil. This is a little bit of a wacky interpretation. You know, might come off that way to some, but unironically. It's kind of sad as well, the state of trans rights and trans legal status in the United States, because I've seen quite a few trans folks and I mean more so femboys and whatever, like take up positions of like genocide adjacent rhetoric, like very self-deprecating stuff in a way that enables a lot of the like anti-trans rhetoric coming out of the right wing. You know, Taftaj being a very prominent example of this. She tends to basically take the sort of logic of transphobes and just apply it with the legitimacy of I'm a trans person and I'm also saying this, like saying trans women. Yeah, femboys are 50-50 in regards to this, and I think that's honestly because a lot of them are submissive and projecting. But you know, the whole like trans women look like men is just insecurity projected outwards, right? And it's demonstrably harmful too, because that's a lot of what the TERF movement relies on, is the sort of baseline disgust that people have for women who look, I guess, unwomanly, for lack of a better term. So, you know, it's very unfortunate. And I think even my state of Virginia, my home state, is one of the states that proposed legislation to this effect. Let's see, states target transgender healthcare first bills of 2023. What states are we talking about? Kansas, Kentucky, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, yep, and Virginia. But of course, I feel like I want to inject some positivity into this, you know, so people don't come away from the stream feeling completely depressed. And just know that it is taking a national and concerted effort to attack the rights of trans people, because most people would not have any objection to this. The political position that trans people should be allowed to exist is so commonsensical, so self-evidently correct, and self-evidently, well, I guess American, to adopt some, you know, patriotic framing, that there has to be a concerted, centralized media campaign to demonize them. And it has to be at, like, such a breakneck pace that if they let up, that people will start to see the cracks. Like, it relies a lot on people being unable to think for themselves. And that's actually that's possible by oversaturating the narrative, which is what a lot of conservative media sites do.